This is Task Data Part 4, Task Data Image Construction. The MS Project exported task data file can be used to control images illustrating the rollup project at any level of data represented by the rollup data. MS Visio can link to external data, and I've provided VBA that interprets data from the MS Project exported XLS file to control images representing project task sequencing. The code can also export images as PDF, JPEG, and PNG. Data connection is available in versions of Visio called Visio Pro for desktop or Visio Online Plan 2 for Office 365. By the way, I use Office 365 Pro Plus with Visio Online Plan 2 and Project for Office 365. These are installed as 64-bit on my desktop and 32-bit on my laptop. The apps are installed on Windows 10 Pro, 64-bit, and I use RDP to reach my laptop. You can find my VBA code at www.softtoysoftware.com/dbnet/programmingprojects, all one word, Visio MP presentation.txt. The VBA code must be installed to each Visio image via SDM file used for a PowerOpI image. The text file includes installation directions for 3 chunks of code, delimited by dashed lines. When copying the code to paste into Visio, don't copy the dashed lines or the instructions within them. In the Visio VBA IDE for your opened VSDM image file, Modules, Module 1. If your project doesn't have a module named Module 1, then right-click the Modules folder in the left pane of the IDE and insert and name a module. Set up the reference listed in the text file via the Visio menu Tools, References. Please maintain the copyright notice in the source code and paste the first chunk of code in from the text file. Then into Visio Objects, this document, parens your doc name. Paste in the second chunk of code from the text file. And finally, into Class Modules, Event Handler. If your project doesn't have a class module named Event Handler, then right-click the Class Modules folder and insert and name a class module. And paste in the third chunk of code from the text file. Connect the Visio image file to the MS Project exported task data file rollup, named within this example as projectfilename.xls. Show the external data window via Visio ribbon Data, section Show Hide, and checkmark External Data Window. To connect, use Visio ribbon Data, External Data, Custom Import, Microsoft Excel Workbook, and select the projectfilename.xls, and then select task_table $1 parens worksheet. As the dialog progresses, checkmark the first row contains column headings, rows to include all data, and use field Unique ID for Visio to index the task data lines in projectfilename.xls. Then place image infrastructure objects on the image sheet in Visio. From the More Shapes, Schedule, Timeline Shapes panel at left, drag a line timeline to the top of the sheet. Only one timeline object can be placed on a sheet. Right-click the timeline object, configure timeline, and set its start and finish dates. I set the timescale to quarters starting on a Sunday, starting fiscal year on January 1, and set the timeline start and finish date to the first of a month. Other settings give me unpredictable results in the timeline display. I set the time format like 5/10/19. With start, finish, and interim markings. From the More Shapes, Schedule, Timeline Shapes panel, drag and position a today marker to the sheet. Create a text box object at the sheet's bottom left margin, and in it insert, field, document info/directory. This will put a file path reference on each image page. Save the page just created as a template for subsequent video images based on the exported msproject.xls task data file. You illustrate the MS Project task data using rectangle objects and milestone objects. Drag rectangles onto the sheet and associate each one with a task from connected project task data. and Visio, using the VBA provided, will scale the rectangle widths and positions horizontally relative to the timeline. To create a rectangle object, drag a rectangle outline from More Shapes, General, Basic Shapes, Rectangle from the Shapes pane at the left margin. To associate a task in a connected task data file, find the task line in the external data window and drag it onto the rectangle object or milestone object in the image. Objects in the image will highlight to show which one is prepared to receive the task you're dragging. You're responsible for grouping the tasks vertically. Position rectangle objects representing tasks for an element revision vertically in groups, and Visio will move them horizontally in time. You can edit the object color and the label at its center. Rectangle objects will position properly to align their start and finish dates with the scale of the timeline, but won't display the dates themselves. To display dates in the image, place milestone objects on the drawing, associated them with connected task data by dragging a selected task from external data onto the milestone object. Milestones will be positioned at the start of associated tasks, not the finish. You can edit the milestone label and color. To create a milestone object, drag a synchronized milestone from the More Shapes, Schedule, Timeline Shapes pane at the left margin. You can place connector objects and text boxes in the object. Connector endpoints can be formatted in color, dash format, and arrowheads. They can be glued to a handle on a side of a rectangle object or a milestone object and will move or stretch with it. Text boxes and unglued connector objects must be manually positioned. They won't reposition on refresh. When the image is opened and when it's saved, it will refresh from the connected task data file and redraw the image to match the timeline object. An example drawing. Bars representing tasks or summary tasks, grouped vertically and colored by you and positioned horizontally by Visio and VBA. Milestones representing start of a task. Connector lines are formatted and glued to handles on rectangle edges. The Today marker moves across the timeline to match today's date. Text boxes provide titles and explanations. These are not moved automatically. You'll have to place them occasionally. PowerOpI images aren't just for hardware. Here's one illustrating sprints developing client data transport. It's connected to the MS Project Gantt, exported task data, and the objects position automatically, honoring dependencies in the MS Project Gantt. Certain behaviors are observed by the VBA as objects are scaled and positioned. A rectangle that moves outside of the date interval of the timeline becomes hidden. A rectangle whose start or finish are outside the timeline date interval will be truncated at the end of the time interval, and the outline of the rectangle will be displayed in dashes. You can reposition the timeline, squeeze it or extend it, or edit its start and end dates. Rectangle and milestone objects will be automatically rescaled and repositioned to match the timeline object. A macro is provided called Save Images that can be initiated from the View Macros button to drop image copies in PDF, JPEG, and PNG formats into the same directory as the Visio source file. If you need to know which task an image object is linked to, right-click the object, Data, Show Linked Row, and the task data line will highlight in the external data pane. If you need to know which image object is linked to a task data line, right-click the task data line in the external data pane, Linked Shapes. An object list will appear, select one, and that object will be selected in the image. This concludes the OPI task data sequence. More video sequences on this channel will cover handling of dates, BOM table structure, data normalization for joins and pivots, use with SQL Server, common table structures, system development considerations, schedule optimization, and OPI deployment configurations. You can find more information on the website. Please subscribe to this channel and like the videos.